Welcome to episode 27 of More Than Just Maps. This podcast was created with the intent for anyone in the GIS field to get from where they are now to where they want to be that your first job, a career move, or just improving your GIS game overall. This is the second part of last week's episode with Ashely Hitt. We talk about not remaining stagnant in rapidly changing fields, along with a discussion of the programs and projects of Connected Nation. Now for part 2 of the interview.
Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Ashely Hitt. Welcome back, Ashely.
Thank you so much, Allie.
So on the last episode, we were talking about how, even though you've been with the same organization for a very long time, how you've managed to not remain stagnant with your organization, and your organization has made that possible for stagnation to not happen, for movement and evolution to keep going. A lot of businesses these days, and I don't know if a lot is the right word, but quite a few definitely do not do that. If someone is in an organization where that's the case, nothing's moving forward, the technology is, they're still using like Arc 9 or something. Like it's really bad. They're not with the times. What's some advice that you could give to somebody who they may not have a lot of pull, but something they can at least do to get something rolling?
So I think I've got two ideas on that front. One is more of a quote, and it's actually something that ERISA uses in the GIS Leadership Academy, is that, if you've got somebody senior level, say at your organization, that says, what if we spend all this money on training and professional development of a person and they end up leaving our organization? And then the second person comes in and says, okay, well, what if we don't keep up their training and professional development and they stay? So that quote has always been very powerful to me in terms of, yes, there's a possibility that in offering the training and enhancing this person's capabilities, their technical acumen, etc., that they might get poached, or they might choose to go to a different organization based on what their new skills are, what their motivations are as a person. But if you decide not to do that because you're afraid of that component, then maybe that's not the right place for you as a person, or just recognizing that as an organization, if we don't provide that type of professional development and training to a person, we're not doing ourselves as an organization any favors either. So that would definitely be kind of part one of that response. And then the second part of that is, if you are in an organization that doesn't seem to favor or provide any focus, funding, training, etc., on advancing yourself or your skills for the benefit of the organization. I know one thing that has happened for some people is that they've approached either, their supervisor, senior leadership at the organization, the agency, the government level that they might be at, to really ask about, what is the goal of the organization? What are the objectives that the organization, the agency is trying to accomplish? And what is the purpose of GIS in helping them meet those goals? Because then if you've got some ideas about how geospatial technology can advance that mission or meet those goals, or provide information or data or analysis to clients, customers, residents, any kind of stakeholder, how are those two parts of your organization talking to each other? So trying to get a better handle on, why does GIS exist at my organization? That might help answer some questions, because then if your organization or department doesn't have like a strategic plan, for instance, you don't know how the organization or the government level that you're at is planning on growing, or what they are trying to achieve over the next couple of years, then that's definitely a huge disconnect. And so being able to try and impact that from your current level, because that's another thing that we really have preached at the ERISA GIS Leadership Academy, is that you can be a leader from wherever you're at. You don't have to supervise staff. You do not have to be in charge of a department, but being able to take on that role of saying, what are we trying to accomplish here? And what are our objectives? And trying to get everybody on the same page for that purpose, that can really impact how you work together on things and are seen as a leader to go, wow, this person really wants to try and innovate or advance or make things more efficient for what we're trying to accomplish. And so being able to talk to your boss or other senior leadership at the organization to figure out what are their pain points, that can really help advance GIS and get you additional funding for what possibilities there are.
So even though Connect Nation is centered in Kentucky, the organization is trying to help everywhere in the U.S. So can you talk about some of the other programs that you've got going right now?
Definitely. So like you mentioned, we are headquartered in Kentucky rather. And so it started out as Connect Kentucky, trying to have a more holistic approach to the digital divide in terms of broadband access, adoption, and use. And so not just saying, once the infrastructure is there and people can have the internet access at their house, everything's great. But how do we move forward from that? If someone does have access at their house, but they don't adopt it, what are the barriers to adoption? Is the price too expensive? Do they not have a device or a computer? Do they not know how to use the internet or know how it can benefit them? And so that kind of more holistic approach to broadband access, adoption, and use started in Kentucky, and then we kind of went backwards, or not really backwards, but starting out at a state level and then moving up to more of a national level to establish and create Connected Nation, because other states were seeing some of the activities that we were doing at the time in Kentucky and wanted to take part of that. So actually right now we have a current program in Texas, so Connected Nation Texas, where we are doing broadband mapping activities. We're looking at different policy components of broadband access and expansion. And then also we have what we call our Connected Community Engagement Program. And so we are working with local governments, mostly at the county level, to look at where they are connectivity wise, how many households are connected, to what type of speed, to what types of technology, what are their goals as a county or a local government in terms of, are they trying to attract a data center? What types of economic development activities are they trying to do? Is it something, are they a tourism-based county? And how can internet access or increased internet access help them in establishing those goals? So we look at where are they currently, where do they want to be, and what are those solutions that can help them get there? So right now,
that's definitely super important, especially coming off the tail end of the pandemic here, where everything went remote and everyone required the internet in order to function normally for the last year and a half.
Yes, my goodness. Yeah, so Connected Nation, this is actually our 20th anniversary from being established. And so that's something that we've always been a part of, is how do we solve the digital divide? Not that, internet is not just a luxury, but it's essential to everyday life in terms of telehealth, remote learning, all those education components, being able to work from home, e-government, economic development services, all of these different aspects of life that are essential parts of being connected and having the internet, not just the social components. And obviously connecting with family over the past year has been so essential, and you being able to have the internet access to do so. So that was one very interesting component of when the pandemic first started and things started shutting down, having lockdowns, was that some school districts were like, oh yeah, we're going to remote learning, and then would come back and go, wait, did you know that half of our students don't have the internet at home? It was like, yes, we're painfully, unfortunately aware that there are a ton of people, millions of Americans, that do not have internet access at home, whether it's an access issue because the infrastructure is physically not there for someone to call a provider and say, hey, please connect to my house, or that they don't have a device, they've never had a computer, they don't know how to use it, it might be too expensive for them to either have a device or purchase the internet. Because there's definitely some pricing differences between urban and rural areas.
Definitely. Not to mention just the type of connection you're going to get from a city to out in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. And so definitely the past year has raised the bar even further on why closing the digital divide is so incredibly important.
Yeah. I can't even remember the number of articles I saw where you'd have kids who were sitting outside a restaurant using the restaurant's Wi-Fi to do their schoolwork, and people were wondering why.
Yes.
The other thing is, like, this definitely impacts not only everyday life for people, but it impacts the GIS industry on such a huge level, since people are not consuming paper maps anymore. There are still some who do, but the vast majority of people are consuming maps online. So if you can't get access to something, or you're somewhere where there is no connection, that's affecting our industry in such a huge way.
Yes, and I've actually spoken to many state and local government leaders about, hey, we have the ability to do all of these cloud-based services and create all of, the story maps and create all of these interactive web mapping applications for the benefit of our residents. But if they don't have internet access, whether that is home internet access, that's through a cable, DSL, fiber, fixed wireless connection, or on a mobile device where they've got cellular service, if they're not able to access our services and our maps and our applications and our data, then we're missing out on a part of our society that cannot access that, whether it's for e-government services, reporting potholes, any of those types of applications that we've built as GIS professionals. We have millions of Americans that cannot access them.
Yeah, I always thought it was funny, back before I had a cell phone that had the ability to connect to the internet. If there was ever a power outage, you had called on your landline to figure out what was going on. The message was always, please check our website at blah, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, how?
Yes, definitely.
I always was so furious at that. At the same time, it's just like, you have to understand what is going on and what is happening in place. You can't just assume that everyone has everything available.
Exactly. And so that's one ironic component of what we do, is we want to hear from people that don't have access to the internet. And so obviously we can't do that through just web forms and go, oh, hey, please use this web form to tell us you don't have the internet. That just doesn't make sense at all.
Nope, so it doesn't help you at all.
Exactly. So being able to truly know your audience and being able to go, okay, here's the objective. I want to know where the people are located that don't have the internet. How am I going to do that? And so, obviously setting up phone numbers, having local distributions, if you've got a local utility company that you can put a mailer in, give them an address to mail that feedback to say, hey, here's my address. I am 1,500 feet away from, a cable node or a fiber marker. I'm so close to getting service. How do I get that? Letting us know their broadband story, essentially, of what they have tried, what they're missing out on. So being able to provide other alternate ways to get that data to us that we can then compile and put on perhaps a web map to show others, where are those gaps? Where are the people that are truly unserved or underserved, so we can work on a solution to connect them and make a difference in their lives.
That's fantastic. I want to head back to, you've mentioned working with ERISA a lot. Can you actually kind of summarize like how you got involved with ERISA and just what you've done with the organization so far?
Absolutely. So I kind of got involved with ERISA in the beginning by, honestly, I think I stumbled across it. So I think perhaps in a geospatial newsletter, this would have been in 2010, I believe, coming across something where they were going to be starting what is called the Vanguard Cabinet of Young Professionals. And they were looking to establish this advisory board of young GIS professionals to work with their board of directors to better understand the challenges that young professionals face in the industry. What are things that we could do for that specific group of people, whether it was students, young professionals, or people just switching to the GIS industry and just getting started. And so I applied to be a member of the Vanguard Cabinet, and I got selected to the very first Vanguard Cabinet that there was with ERISA in 2010. So that was that was a fantastic opportunity to really get involved with a geospatial organization and really try to better understand all of the various aspects of GIS, how people are using it, how, again, those different types of organizations are using GIS and what their approach is to enhancements and innovations. And so that I was able to kind of see other ERISA committees, between marketing and conference planning committee, the policy advisory committee. There are so many different committees available at ERISA that I was able to kind of see, get to learn about what are they doing, what are they trying to accomplish, and see where I might fit in to any of those committees and be more a part of those. So I've done quite a bit with the marketing committee. I've been chair of that before. I started getting involved more with the conference planning committee, and was actually the chair of GIS Pro this past year in 2020. I've been more involved.
Such a fun year to be the chair.
Oh my goodness, yes. It was definitely a learning experience trying to pivot from having an in-person conference completely planned, and then pivoting to a completely virtual offering, while still trying to establish those connections, because that is one of the best things I think exist about ERISA, is that being able to have those connections between people and our organizations and being able to have people to lean on. So actually I've been using the ERISA Connect a lot more, the forum where people can post questions, ideas, jobs, thoughts, anything. But they've got an interesting one on there right now about, what is ERISA to you? And so one of the best things that I have found about ERISA is that several years ago, we were working on a new type of project. It was quite large, and we were trying to figure out the best way to approach it. So I reached out to 10 ERISA members that I had known for a few years at that point. I had 9 responses within 24 hours that provided knowledge, expertise, their lessons learned, their experience. And it just proved, my goodness, that ERISA membership, I could not have paid that dollar amount to a consultant, perhaps, to get that type of feedback from that many different types of organizations that quickly.
And do you think that's because there's buy-in to ERISA? Our membership fee is pretty steep for ERISA International. I know not just ERISA Texas, but other organizations too. They'll send out surveys or call for nominations or for voting, and they'll get a pitiful response back when they'll have thousands of people that they've sent things to, and they'll get less than 50 out of all that. Do you think you get that response from ERISA just because you're not just paying, but it's something that you're joining this organization because you believe what it stands for? Absolutely. Because a lot of the people that I've met through ERISA that I've had kind of continuous connections with, that is really what I have found to be true. Like, people are there because, the most basic member might be there because they want to get GISP points, or they want to get the newsletter or something like that. But the most involved members are the ones that are truly getting out of it what they're putting in. Are they involved in committees? Are they, to be able to establish those connections to go, oh, hey, if somebody like Ollie, if you emailed me and said, hey, I'm trying to do this, do you have any experience with that? You're a connection from ERISA, and I know you, and I'm going to go, yeah, how can I help Ollie figure this out? So those types of connections where so many people seem to be so involved with the industry and just purely wanting to help another person understand or, share their knowledge. Here's how we did it, or, hey, we tried it this way and it totally didn't work. Don't do that. Here's what we did instead. And just being able to share that knowledge of the challenges, the issues, and the lessons learned, the people have really made ERISA just a great place to be a part of. So another thing, you've mentioned all the stuff that you've done with ERISA, and ERISA has done just an incredible amount of things over the years. But this doesn't happen with just one person. You need to have a team of people. And I know we've found as an organization, as a chapter, that if you have one person doing 100 things, you're setting yourself up for failure. But if you have 100 people doing one thing, you're going to go a lot further. The problem is finding 100 people.
Of course.
So how have you been able, or what's some of the things that you've used to then, and this is good not just for people who are trying to fill nonprofit positions, but just any position at all. How do you find the right people for the job? How do you find your 100 people for what you need to do? And maybe you don't need 100, but even just for hiring managers, trying to find the right person. How do you do that? I know it's a super loaded question.
Oh, absolutely. So in terms of, looking for the right fit, I think there's two kind of components to that in terms of looking at that person as far as their passion. There are certain things that are trainable and certain things that are not. It's part of a person's personality or how they approach things, how they like to learn. I can train somebody on our systems all day long, but if they don't have the underlying motivation to better themselves or be a part of what we're trying to accomplish as an organization, whether that's Connected Nation or ERISA, it might not be the best fit. But
so you're not just talking skills, you're talking really
absolutely
what's driving them.
Yes, someone who's got a passion, especially for Connected Nation as a nonprofit, who's got a passion for, I understand your all's vision and mission, and I want to help you all achieve that. That person, they may be lacking in certain training or certain expertise on things that we do very frequently, but I have more faith in that person going above and beyond to do what needs to be done to enhance their own skills because that passion is present than someone who may already have those skills but may not put forth as much effort. And so I definitely find that is true at ERISA as well, trying to find, who are the people that really want to be here and want to contribute and want to help. So that would definitely be one part of it. And then another side would be kind of the managing the expectations. What does success look like? So if you've got 100 people available that say, hey, I'm here to help, tell me what to do, we got to have that list. What are they going to be doing? Whether that's a staff member or a volunteer on a committee or a chapter, what are the things that are physically available for them to do? So certainly as, ERISA and all of the chapters being volunteer-based organizations, we might say, hey, we really need more volunteers on this committee. Okay, so what does that mean? So if I'm trying to recruit someone new that says, well, I think I want to get involved, but what exactly would I be doing? Is it, are we looking for longstanding members who are going to be maybe able to join a call once a month for an hour to talk through what the various needs are? And then if they volunteer for other types of tasks, they can do so. But being able to really say, oh, hey, we are looking for someone to help us do this research, maybe a couple hours a week. We're looking to fill in this spreadsheet of these types of details. That's a very concrete thing that someone can look at and go, yes, I can apply myself to that. But if it's too vague, then no one is on the same page. So definitely being able to be very explicit in what that expectation is and what does success look like so that people know what they're signing up for.
I think that's on the money. We found that as a chapter, that was exactly one of our problems. We kept saying, we need volunteers, we need volunteers, we need volunteers. We'd get somebody to volunteer and they had no idea what they were doing, and nobody could tell them clearly what they were doing. We finally realized, okay, we need to have like volunteer job descriptions. Here's exactly what I need a volunteer for. And we listed out how many hours a month they were going to put into it, if they were required for any meetings, and we just listed everything out. And we found that has helped tremendously.
Definitely. Knowing what you're going into, not just, hey, I think I signed up for this, I'm not quite sure what it means, but being able to physically say, here are those meetings, here's what we're hoping to get out of it, here's what this is going to accomplish. And I found that certainly true in the organization sense as well, at work on the business/professional side, of being able to say, this task seems extremely monotonous, but how does it apply to our vision? And being able to describe that bigger picture of, yes, this list that needs to be geocoded doesn't seem like a big deal, but this is how it's going to help these students in this school district that don't have internet at home. This is how we're going to help connect them. And so being able to feel connected to what we're trying to accomplish, instead of, just as the supervisor going, oh, hey, go geocode this list, let me know when it's done. They know exactly how important that is to apply to physically help someone in the end product there. So that big picture description I have found is very important.
It's definitely important, especially you don't want to be doing a task and you're just like, how is this helping not even just anyone, just like, what am I doing with my life by doing this task?
Right. What is the purpose?
Yeah. And this is before I ever got into the GIS industry, while I was working retail, while I was in school, but you'd be sitting there and just like, why am I here? I know I'm getting a paycheck, but why am I here? And I feel like if somebody's doing that while they're in industry, there's a really, really big problem, but that's definitely not, you want to give them that vision of, here's why the task that you're doing is important.
Definitely. And everybody's different, and everybody's got different personalities, different motivations of what they are doing, say for that paycheck, in terms of what makes them stay at an organization, what are they trying to accomplish, do they have different professional goals? And so there may be different organizations that are just not a good fit for a specific person. And that's something that we have to look at organizationally as well as on an individual level. Like where do I want to be personally, and what types of things pique my interest, and trying to see if there's a connection between an organization that would meet that type of, geospatial work that I would hope to do, that motivates me to do that work every day.
Let's talk GIS Pro. You were the conference coordinator last year, which I want to say for going what you guys had to go through, it turned out really well, and I was very happy with it.
Excellent.
So I don't think we've ever talked conferences before on the podcast, so this will be kind of a first. But can you actually explain a little bit of what goes on at GIS Pro? It's not going to be, for those who have been to the Esri UC, it's not going to be the same as Esri UC. But can you kind of talk a little bit about what is so special about Pro?
So EURISA's GIS Pro, it's the annual conference that's kind of the all-encompassing geospatial location intelligence, not specific to any one GIS software or vendor, but bringing together more of the overarching ideas of geospatial together. So GIS Pro has focused a lot more the last several years on different program tracks. So while there are more of those technical sessions of how specific things or specific analyses were used to do a certain type of analytics or make certain decisions or solve certain problems, there are also different program tracks for GIS leadership and management, for equity and social justice in GIS, for health and human services. There are all kinds of tracks that are available that if you have a specific focus area within GIS or geospatial, that could hopefully apply to you. So if you are in local government, there is a place for you. If you are in academia, there is a place for you. If you are a student or young professional, there is an entire track dedicated to how, not just the education component of GIS, how do we teach people GIS and geospatial theories and applications, but if you're a young professional, what are those things that some of us wish we had known when we first got started in GIS? What do you need to know about transitioning from an analyst to a manager? So there's all different parts, not just the technical skills, but also some of those other essential skills, sometimes called soft skills, but I'm not a huge fan of that because they are truly essential skills. Being able to have communication about what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, what is the impact, public speaking, technical reports. There are so many of these other skills that are essential in trying to get, that promotion of yourself, that branding of yourself, what type of geospatial professional you are. So there's so many different aspects of ERISA GIS Pro in terms of the conference, the program tracks, as well as those connections, being able to find how other organizations and people have solved certain problems. So if it's a challenge that you've been experiencing, what are some of the solutions that other people have put into play? And people are very willing to share that information. Here's what I tried and it failed, and here's why it failed, and here's what I learned from it. So that's another big component of it, is not just a GIS Pro, but certainly as a leader or a manager in your organization, is being able to say, I want to empower my staff to fail, and not in a failure type way, but be able to give them the freedom and be able to empower them to try different things. And if it doesn't work, we learned what didn't work. Let's try something else. But what if it does work? Then we're already more steps ahead than we were when we were afraid to try it because we were afraid of that failure. What if it doesn't work? Okay, well, even if it doesn't work, we learned what doesn't work. Let's move on to the next thing. Now we know.
So let's actually talk on that now. So how have you handled when there was an expectation for something to turn out a certain way and it did not, and failure was evident? How have you handled that, and how have you coached others to handle that, especially when you're dealing with like high stakes?
Sure. And so I feel like there's definitely kind of, I feel like I keep going back to the number 2, but I feel like there's 2 kind of components of that too. Because if we're looking at innovation type things, there's really more freedom and exploration of let's see what works. And if it fails, no big deal. But then we've got the other part of it where, depending on what the outcome is or what our objective is, if it's it must happen this way, we must hit this deadline, we must have this expected result, that there's a lot less room for failure there. And so being able to establish what the expectation is up front, whether that's with an individual staff member or the entire group, to go, hey, we've got some room here to really try and explore and figure stuff out, or we have very little room. We need to have very exact testing, very exact results. We need to really understand exactly what these outputs are. That level of expectation is really what can help drive that. And so as part of your leadership style, that can be very situational. So you may have a situation where we have that freedom to fail and see what works and what doesn't. And some situations where, no, we are too, it's black and white. It's very 1, 2, 3. We have to try and handle this a certain way.
That's excellent. Awesome. This has been such a great conversation, Ashely. It definitely could keep you on here for like another hour or so. For those who have not been able to experience Ashely's brilliance at the GLA, I highly recommend signing up for it. She is a fantastic teacher there. You will instantly fall in love with her, just like everybody else has. And if you cannot, at least try to get up to GIS Pro. I know Ashely will be there this year and as many years as she can go.
Yes, absolutely. I really appreciate that, Ollie. I really have enjoyed being an instructor at the GIS Leadership Academy. We'll definitely be at ERISA GIS Pro this year, back in person for 2021, fingers crossed. I've got a couple presentations that are going to be there, one specific to what Connected Nation does with closing the digital divide, and then another one more specific to GIS leadership and management. So yeah, definitely check out the program tracks and sign up to be there. It's going to be a great time in Baltimore.
Thanks so much, Ashely.
Thank you so much, Ollie.